Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a bunch of so-called true horror stories. But this isn't just for a cheap thrill. We're actually here to kind of dissect the anatomy of modern fear, to really get at what truly, deeply terrifies us in the world we think we know. So, let's get started.
Okay, let's just dive right in with this quote. This line. It just captures that primal fear, doesn't it? It's that absolutely chilling sensation that your safety, your privacy, it's all just a fragile illusion. You know that gut-wrenching moment when every single instinct in your body is just screaming that something is profoundly wrong, even when you can't see a thing? That's what we're talking about.
See, the stories we're about to get into, they show us that the most effective horror, it's not about some made-up monster. No way. It's when the ordinary, familiar world we trust, our homes, our neighborhoods, the people living just a few feet away, suddenly turns on us. So we're going to start with the place we're supposed to feel the safest, right next door. The place where the familiar can become terrifyingly, horribly foreign. So, this first theme, it's all about that psychological breach of trust. It's the kind of horror that doesn't even need to break down your door because it's already there, just simmering right on the other side of the wall. It's about the familiar turning into something alien and, frankly, really threatening. So here's how one of these starts. A couple sells their old house to some new neighbors, and at first, it's just odd disturbances. Loud music at midnight, heavy banging through the walls. Annoying, for sure. But, you can explain it away. It's that kind of low-level unease you just try to ignore, that nagging feeling in the back of your mind that something's not quite right with the people just a few feet away. And then just watch how fast this escalates. It absolutely spirals. It goes from a bizarre car accident with a clumsy excuse to a frantic call about a break-in that feels totally staged, and then, boom, a violent chase as thieves are literally emptying the house. The storytellers are just suddenly witnesses to this criminal underworld they had no idea even existed, and it all culminates in the absolutely shocking return of the neighbor. And this right here, this is the moment that just completely shatters that whole illusion of suburban safety. The monster, the threat. It's not some stranger miles and miles away. It's this bloodied, broken man lurking in the dark behind your own cars. It's a terrifying intersection of their violent world crashing right into your quiet one. Okay, so that was like a sudden explosion of violence, right? But horror can be something else entirely. It can be a slow burn, a creeping dread that just eats away at your sense of security over a long, agonizing period of time. Let's look at how this builds with the psychological terror of being stalked, where the threat is patient, persistent, and just terrifyingly close. I mean, just look at this timeline. This shows the horror of a violation that goes on for years. A teenage girl hears shuffling outside her window. She sees a silhouette in a mirror. And for years, she's told it's just her imagination. Can you imagine the psychological toll of that? The final reveal that her father finally sees the man standing there, just staring into her room, it makes every single sound she was told to ignore, every shadow she tried to forget, retroactively terrifying. It was all real. All right, so now we escalate. We're moving to what might be the ultimate fear. It's that moment when the thin barrier between the safe world inside your home and the dangerous world outside is just completely and totally shattered. The sanctuary you thought you had, it's gone. And it can start with something so simple, so chilling, just 4 words. Imagine this. A 12-year-old kid is home alone, orders a pizza. The delivery driver shows up and asks, "You alone here?" In that single instant, a totally normal everyday transaction turns into a threat assessment. The seed of fear is planted, right there on the doorstep. And just look at how that fear becomes a reality. This sequence, it's like a methodical destruction of every single layer of safety you have. The threat moves from the porch to inside the house to right outside the final place of refuge, the parents' locked bedroom. Every step confirms the absolute worst is happening, and it's getting closer and closer. Someone breaking in is terrifying. But what if the intruder didn't need to break in? What if they were already there? That's a whole other level of horror, right? The realization that the threat hasn't just invaded your space, it's been living with you in secret this whole time, a silent, unseen presence. And this just illustrates that horrifying reveal perfectly. For months, you tell yourself the strange noises are just the old pipes. You hear laughter and you think, it must be my imagination.
You rationalize everything. But the reality? The reality is a man was living behind a bookshelf, in your wall, watching you sleep through a tiny hole. Suddenly, every strange sound was real, and the sanctuary of your own bedroom was secretly a stage for a hidden spectator. Okay, but the scary stuff isn't just confined to our homes, right? It follows us. And its power is often cranked up to 11 when we're alone and exposed. So this next part, we're going to explore that unique vulnerability that comes with total isolation, where the darkness isn't just outside, it's all around you. There's a specific phobia for this, autophobia. It's this morbid fear of being alone. And understanding that is really key to why these next stories are so effective. They prey on that deep, primal fear of being in a situation where there is absolutely no one around to help. You're entirely on your own, against whatever is out there, and sometimes your own mind becomes your worst enemy. So check out this progression. Imagine you're a trucker driving alone on some dark, empty highway. First, you see a purple dress lying in the middle of the road. Strange. Then, a couple hundred yards later, a pair of shoes. Then a pile of kids' clothing. It's like a breadcrumb trail of pure dread, and it all leads to hearing a child's scream from the woods. It's a carefully laid trap designed to prey on your most basic human instincts and lure you into the darkness where someone is waiting. And here's the chilling reveal. The screams? They were a recording, played on a massive speaker by people hiding among the trees. The real horror here is the calculation behind it. It's a predatory deception. The trucker's instinct to help, his compassion, that was being weaponized against him. It was the bait. See, on a lonely road, at least you have the option to just drive away. Hit the gas and don't look back. But what happens when you can't? What if you're a stationary target trapped in one place in the dead of night? Let's look at how this fear builds in a place like a hotel on the night shift, where you're totally isolated and every little sound seems amplified. And this table, it basically documents a threat that's hiding in plain sight. At 11 p.m., a so-called guest checks in with a stolen card. Then, for hours, he just sits in the lobby staring at a blank TV. By 2 a.m., he's wandering the halls, hiding in stairwells. And then, at almost 4 in the morning, he's just standing, motionless, outside a random guest's door. He used the hotel's feeling of safety and turned it into his own personal hunting ground. So, after exploring all these escalating invasions of our safety, from our neighbors to our own homes to being totally isolated, we have to ask the big lingering question, right? Why can't we look away? What is it about these terrifying stories that we find so compelling? Why are we drawn to the very thing that repels us? Well, I think a big part of the answer is that these stories, they're not just entertainment. They're kind of like cautionary tales. They're almost a form of threat simulation. They let us confront our absolute deepest fears of being watched, of being deceived, of violence, but from a safe distance. We get to run through all the what-if scenarios without any of the real danger. It's like a mental fire drill for the worst-case scenario. And really, they remind us that the line between a totally normal day and a life-altering horror is terrifyingly razor-thin. Their true power comes from the fact that they're plausible. We're not talking about ghosts or demons here. We're talking about what one person can do to another. And they resonate so much because of that unsettling little voice in the back of your head that recognizes, yeah, this could happen to anyone, anywhere. And really, that's the thought I want to leave you with. These stories feel so real because, well, they could be. They're a stark reminder that maybe the ordinary world isn't quite as safe as we like to tell ourselves. So I guess the real question is, how well do you really know what's just outside your door? Thanks for joining this explainer.